right on time, and I think that's quorum, so I'm not going to wait. Normally I wait a couple of minutes here, but I think probably we can just start here and say hello, everyone. This is meeting of the TAG CS Mentoring Working Group, and is an official CNCF meeting. So it's covered by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which we can boil down to please be nice to each other. Now I really need to cough here. My apologies. Oh my goodness. Trying for a clean opening. I still can't get it. So with that bit out of the way, hello. We've got a couple of things added to our agenda item. Feel free, or to our agenda, a couple of items added to our agenda. Feel free to add stuff if you don't see what you want to chat about already there. And otherwise, even while we're talking, feel free to add things or take notes or whatnot. So first off, the LFX mentoring term 3, September through November, is completing last week and this week. The evaluations were, I asked the mentors to get the evaluations in by Wednesday of last week. The majority of them got it in by Friday of last week, and a few drug it out even to Monday of this week, and I'm still actually waiting on a couple. One I'm assuming is I assumed a pass based on conversation I had with the mentor, but they still haven't filled out the form, which is disappointing. I won't name names at this point, but and then we also had one extension. Both the program and the mentee agreed that an extra week would be useful, and so I like to be flexible if I can be. And in this case, we should have the project complete tomorrow, and we'll be expecting the evaluation for that particular one on this Friday. So I'll follow up with that. So we are paying stipends out. I've got the I've already sent the mentees the information on how to do the stipend stuff, and I also in that email asked them to do the mentee end of term survey. I haven't gotten any responses to that yet, having sent that out on Monday, and so I will probably resend that request later on this week just to try and get some traction on that. We need the some of the information that we get from that survey is what we roll into the marketing blurb that we do, the blog entry on cncf.io. So we do need at least some of those to be filled out in order to properly move that process forward. I still have to do the updates to the repo in terms of just updating the statistics and saying, okay, this is now a complete semester and so on and so forth. Count the I think it was 24. I'm assuming 24 successful. We had no failures so far. We have still that one outstanding. But I'm cautiously optimistic that given that they got the extension that it will also be a pass. So this will be the first, if it comes to fruition, knocking wood, it'll be the first semester we've had in quite a while that have had no failures, which makes me very, very happy.
Nice.
Sorry, Nate, a question.
Sure.
Is the mentee survey more aimed at, is it for design for marketing purposes, or is there, elements of sort of feedback for program? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah,
so we ask for feedback on the program, but we also invite them to write up blog posts and such like that. So it would probably be good to split them, but it's one of those things where I don't want to overload folks with emails and requests to do stuff. So that's why I sent this out as an addendum to the. So sorry about that. where was I? I sent it out as an addendum to the stipend email that I normally send out. And that might have been a mistake in terms of trying to get folks to do two things, but we'll see. Yeah.
Cool.
All right, moving on to Google Summer of Code 2023. They've published their timeline, and I think that we've got some deadlines that we need to start taking a look at in January. So I think we have time, but it's something to be sort of aware of. Yeah, they've got a January 23rd deadline for mentoring organizations submitting applications to Google. Now, what that means for us, for January 23rd, that means we need to start getting project proposals in from the projects.
That's the start. That's the start, though. I guess the deadline would be the 7th of February, or am I wrong in that? We can start sending at the 20.
Yeah, so it's the opening and closing of the cycle. So it opens on the 23rd and closes on the 7th, giving us a couple of weeks. Looks like what, 2 or 3 weeks to get stuff together. But we should probably start letting the projects know even a little bit before the 23rd. They can sometimes drag their feet. And so Google is particularly serious about their deadlines. And so anything that we can do to get things either done early or get it done early is better, but on time is super important. Because if we miss a deadline, even if a mentor misses a deadline for providing like an evaluation, that is seriously considered the next year that CNCF or an organization wants to apply as an org. So yeah, we need with Google Summer of Code and Season of Docs, we really need to make sure that we're on our A game and that things are buttoned up and ready to go when they need to be going.
Is there any key suggestions? Oh, yep. Sorry, cut you off.
Sorry.
Is there any key suggestions in terms of how to support that?
We just need to do the work. We just need to do the work on time. And this, I think, goes back to we talked about it last week. I do have. If it's not in our to do, then we should add it as a to do. One of the things I want to do with, I'd like to create a calendar for CNCF mentoring. And even if it's not necessarily a public calendar, maybe it's just a calendar for us, but essentially what I want to do is collect dates for all of our, if Google has published dates, it should be on our calendar. If Outreachy has published dates, it should be on our calendar. All of our LFX timeline should be on our calendar. And so I do that sort of ad hoc with my own calendar, but I think it should be a community driven thing if we can. I can take a look into how to do that. I think I've got the ability to create one, but I would probably have to talk with Amy to double check how that would work. So I'm happy to put that on my to-do list.
We've got a ticket for that on our project board under the version 2 repo.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the action. I was actually looking at that this week, and I was wondering if you probably need permissions within CNCF to be able to set it up. Otherwise, if you have any ideas, I'm willing to help with that.
For what was that? Sorry,
setting up the calendar.
Oh yeah, no, it would be. Yeah, I think like I said, I think I can create it, but I need to double check it and I need to double check where it should live as well. If it's a CNCF public calendar, then I can do that, but I don't want to put it like right onto the CNCF specific public calendar, but I would like it to live in the same organization as the CNCF public calendar, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Now, are you talking about one of you mentioned the V2 repo? What does that? I missed the connection there.
There is a ticket already in our
there's a ticket. Okay.
repo. Yeah, we made a ticket for it, and it's on the project board.
Awesome. Could you drop that into that action item there, just under the note, just so that we've got the link. Thank you so much.
Got it.
A little bit of an update for Outreachy. I on Friday and Saturday was involved in a discussion, and it looks like OTEL will be doing 2 projects with Outreachy this cycle, which is awesome. And I believe it starts in January 2023. They had only applied for funding for one of them through the CNCF, so that's what we are funding. But it looks like, I think they've made the announcement, so I think I can say this, but it looks like the other one will also be funded through Outreach, not through the CNCF, which is also great. One of the things I'd like to do with them is, I think, I don't know that this has to be me necessarily, but I think somebody from our team here should contact Outreachy, or maybe a couple of us can, to sort of just discuss with them what their, in a little bit more detail, what their program is, because I don't understand it as well as I think I should. It looks like it's very much project driven, which is fine, but there might be an opportunity to work with them as an organization like we do with Google and whatnot as well. So that's something something we should look into potentially.
So you basically want to catch up, set up a meeting with Outreach and find out exactly how their program work and links and information about their program process.
Yeah, I think we should probably do a research round before doing that. I think we should probably try to understand it as best we can before talking to them. But I think we are at a point where CNCF is participating, but we're kind of participating in spite of ourselves because the project did it themselves first, which is fine. It's fine. But I come the second cycle of the year, if they have multiple cycles, I would like to see what we can do about getting more involved.
I think Josh would also be a good resource to speak to. Yeah. Because I often hear him talk about Outreachy, so I think he also has some knowledge.
I think you're probably right. Any other questions or comments about that before we move on?
No, but I'd be keen to be involved in that. I'm interested.
Sorry,
I'd be keen to be involved.
Cool.
Outreach. The 2 of us can have a look at it.
Yeah, cool.
Sounds good. And I can provide you the contact information that I've got now as well for Outreachy. But I'll do that offline.
Cool. Okay,
moving on. Google season of docs. They are still showing their 2022 timeline, but again, going back to, I think, the theme of today's meeting, probably best to keep an eye on it. And it's the type of thing that we should, as it comes up, add to our calendar and be aware of, because it's I'm a little partial to Google Summer of Season of Docs, because it is explicitly a non-technical enterprise. So it's one of those things that I'm just like, oh boy, we can get writers involved and try to expand out what we're doing. So something to sort of key in on. Moving, just before we get to mentoring repo, one of the things that I've been asked to do just as a part of the end of the year sort of evaluation and whatnot, we have some program stats that are being presented to the CNCF governing board at some point in December. And I don't think that these are private numbers because you can look at our repos and count them all up. So I'll just read them off to you. I believe that we had, with Google Season of Docs, we had 3 mentorships. Google Summer of Code, we had 16 successful ones of 18. So we had 2 unfortunately fail there. For the LFX, in the spring, we had 36 successful projects. In the summer, we had 27. Then we changed our terminology, nomenclature. And so for term 3, September through November, we've had 24 projects. And counting that up, that's 106 successful mentorships. There's 106 mentorship projects this year. And then the other number that I had to go through and count up, we had 95 mentors across those projects. So we had 95 individual mentors, and sometimes mentors do multiple things. You can have between 1 and 3. But I think 106 projects with 95 mentors is a pretty good haul, I think.
Sorry,
That's
do you
almost
have
one every second working day of the year. It's not
Yeah, right. Not bad at all.
do you have the stats for the total mentees so we can
Total mentees I
we
have
can
not. That would be 106, because presumably no one is able to. No one on the LFX side should be able to participate twice on the LFX side, and on the Google side, I don't recall seeing anybody, because it would have been some overlap. So I don't think that there were any mentees overlapping. So I think it should be 106 individual mentees with 95 mentors participating. It's a good work, folks. I mean, I think internally the CNCF had a goal of running 100 projects this year. I think with 106 successful, we've run more projects, but we had some unsuccessful ones. But I think 106 successful projects, 106 successful mentees is a really good number.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's good.
they're going to ask us to do more next year, I promise. But that's future us's problem.
Let's celebrate the now for now.
Right, exactly. That's a win.
yeah, great work.
Okay,
Nice job.
and the last item that we have on our agenda is the mentoring repo review. And I think Rian or Jay, would you like to take this one? I think you've been doing more work on it than I have, so thank you.
Okay, I'll take the first one. It's the PR that I've made, and it has grown a bit over time, but I think it's ready. If everybody agrees with the approach, thanks for the review, Nate. I updated accordingly. So there's several commits, and if you look at the changes, so basically we moved the things into the archive, change the archive folder to the README as you proposed, and that will merge then into the V2 branch. Cleaned up the README, so the README is way clearer. And I think an easy way to see that, if you actually go to my fork,
Yeah.
it just reads easier for me. So I can take my without giving my fork.
Yep. Yeah, that's actually how I reviewed it the first time. I'll often add a quote unquote deploy preview that is a link to the files changed in my fork. That way, in the PR, it's fairly easy to see. Just a you don't have to do that, but it's sometimes good practice for some of these types of changes.
So it's just, so again, I was focusing on looking for the fork. So you just put a link to the fork in the PR to
Put a link to the fork.
review.
Normally what I would call it in websites, you'd call it like a deploy preview, because it will be like a Netlify generated preview or whatnot. And so I call it a quote unquote deploy preview when I link to like the README in the fork, right? Because it doesn't render in the PR, but your fork would have to. And so dropping the link there is helpful for folks.
So, let's go. Let me give you a better link. Let's go to V2. Let's go there. And then if you look at the README, it's way more concise. I left cross in there because it is mentioned there is an archive for cross. And then if you go from there onto the programs folder, then you have the programs listed there, but you don't have cross here, but cross now lives under the archive. And if you go into the archive, there's a README with all the mentoring information, rendering exactly as it was in the README, but in a more appropriate place. And we have cross as a folder there, moved in there.
Yeah.
That's the highlight of that changes.
That sounds great.
Can we have, I don't know if that's already in the to-do list, but can we have on the first README, can we have some kind of list or section with all of the other directories and other pages and whatnot, similar to how a sidebar or a menu would work? So that when we get to the page, we already know that like those other ones exist.
I think yes, we could. But what the purpose of this PR is just to clean up the README for the moment. So I think we could actually, if you agree, let's do all the cleanups, and then when we're done, I think the README as a whole would need a refactor and a rewrite to make sense for the whole repo once we cleaned it all up.
One thing
Yeah.
I'm noticing.
Let's do that after the first refactor then, I guess. Go on, Nate.
Sorry, one thing I'm noticing, could we keep 2022 as alive rather than in the archive? So right now in the archive, we've got LFX stuff for 2022. And while, yes, it is older, I'd like to, like, I don't think we just want our current live stuff. Potentially it's of value to have like a couple in case somebody needs to I think well, it's a question. I'm asking what you folks think of this is let's keep like a year's worth of stuff as current and then archive anything older than a year old. Does that seem like a reasonable cutoff, or would you prefer to have anything that's been closed immediately punted into the archive?
I was wondering about that, and I think yes, I was not sure where to make it live, but I see the README for the program section is actually empty. So what it might be good to put the current, when you click on programs, the current programs is in the README on the programs folder.
Right.
If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, that does make sense, actually, I think.
So okay, so I'll cut that out of the archive README.
Yeah.
Everything that says 2022, stick that back into the README in the front page, and just call it running projects or current work.
Yeah, I think.
And then refer to the archive for all this. So yeah, okay. I'll, if we want to merge this PR to clean it up, and I'll do that in a second PR if you want to.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's make a comment here. I'm just going to make a comment in here.
Yes.
Say, oops, I don't want to do that.
And then on Alexandra's point, I think we should add a ticket of specifically creating the proper README for the front page when we're done with all the links. Okay, we go.
Okay, so I'll make that, looks good. So I'm going to approve this then. Have you done an approval yet, Jay? Yeah, you've approved a couple of mine.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, okay. So keep that in mind that you're also able to approve any of these things that are coming through
Cool.
here. So I'm gonna.
So another thing that I noticed here, we have in the mentoring archive, we have the programs, and then we have year, and other in the list we have like fall, summer, spring, but for some we have listed by quarters, the older ones.
Mhm.
And do we want to keep that, or standardize in some kind of?
My opinion of archives is that they rigidly stay as they were, because it's a history. So for instance, we're going to be mentioning a summer semester and a spring semester and then a term 3. And that is something that you could update, but it's the type of thing that I wouldn't recommend updating, because if you change it, then you're altering the view of the, I mean, of course, there's the Git repo history and all the rest of that, but it's, I like, for anything in an archive like that, and this is something that I hold true to in technical documentation as well. Two things. I've got sort of two rules. It goes in as it was, and then unless something is a security risk, it doesn't get changed again later. Right? It's
So it represents like a snapshot of that time.
Yeah, precisely. So now, while we're going through this process of building out V2, this is the time where we can make some of those changes and say, okay, well, this should be here or this should be here. But in terms of like changing the content and whatnot, I'd be very careful to make sure that things are getting moved around in as non-destructive a way as we can.
Yeah, I would just suggest that we find some standard to keep the record of everything, because then we can more easily do any kind of analytics. We can bring everything that is like per quarter or per season or like stats that are directly tied to like a quarter or a season or something like that, and then it gets easier to present and whatnot.
I think I can get behind that, because that's just organizing. Like, we can break files apart as long as we're not changing what those files are saying, right? So if you're saying we should have like, and maybe this would be something that would be easier to diagram. But if you're saying that we should have subfolders for every year, I wouldn't go to the quarter level, I think, for this type of stuff. But if you're suggesting that we have several subfolders in the archive folder under the project folders that represent years, I could get behind that. Is that not already the way? Sorry.
I think more what I hear Alexandra say is for the new work rolling in, for statistical purposes, it would make sense if we run all programs with the same cadence and say this is Q1 and all the things that happen in Q1. So not necessarily change the archive, but going forward, chop it into 4 quarters or 3 semesters.
Would you be willing to share your screen?
If it's matchable between the programs like that.
Well, I don't think they are. That's I think.
Because every program's got their own cadence. Did I understand
For
correctly
instance,
what you were
Google's
saying,
homework code
Alexander?
only runs once, and then LFX runs 3 times. So it's yeah, it's going to be different for each one, and that's why would you mind sharing your screen, Riyadh? Because I think you've got the. If that's not too much bother.
No worries. Which one do I want to share? The project?
Just your V2.
board? Oh, the V2. Okay, let me do sharing a.
Because then we can just
screen.
look at.
There we are. I'll share that. If that makes sense. So we've got the project board. Yes. Pop that out. So here's the project board.
Zoom is assuming screen on the wrong
Let's
screen.
go here. Mentoring. There we are. So
then,
starting off the main repo. So basically, no, this is not. Oh, sorry. I want to go to the root. So on the root, the README is at the moment only this, and then I dropped the link in the chat for a ticket to update the root README and make a sitemap of that.
right. Okay.
So thanks for that
Then
proposal. And then should I go to programs?
Yeah. And I think this README is empty, so we need to do something here.
So I'll go, if you leave a note there in the PR, I'll go and chop out everything that says 2022 and stick that back.
And that's something that can probably go into that shouldn't be removed from the live stuff. So if you go up to programs and then LFX, for instance, this one's 2022 should be, I don't like, this is where we're gonna have to, because I assumed you got all that from the README from here.
No, I actually all the data here. So we actually are duplicating things, and that's what we discussed the previous time, that we should be careful of having duplicate. So all this information, no, that's the wrong place, sorry. If I go mentoring, if I go to programs, or let me show you where I got it. Actually, if I go on main, that's where it was sitting. So all that.
Oh, it's just straight from there. Okay.
Lived here. So
Right,
I just pulled it off here, which I hope correlates with the things in the back.
We're also, when I say I need to update the repo, it's this I need to update this week. So we're gonna have to refactor, because some of the stuff is gonna have to be moved again as we do this, because I need to drop the 24 new projects in there.
If you, for a method of working, if you make changes now, you're gonna continue updating the main branch, or you're going to?
Well, it will have to go into, it'll have to go into main. And then what we're going to have to do is something called a rebase. And I can walk you through that. So what we're going to have to do is pull any, and this is part of the reason I was so persistent about using git move and things like that, because what'll happen is the main is going to keep getting updated, right? And V2 is going to have to get rebased on top of main as we update main to make sure that everything is up to date. So it's a pain, but it's a fairly common process. So again, when we get to that point, I can walk us through how that process goes.
All right.
Yeah.
Then if everybody's good with the archive refactoring PR, I can take you through the next steps that Jay and I was discussing. Or Jay, I think you can do that, because we're now looking at the next 2 tickets, which is related to, let's go to the project. Project's not on mine, it's on the mentoring repo. Go to project. And project. Oh, come on.
It's it was on the other one.
I click down. There we are. So the next two top tickets that we're looking at is updating the mentee section, updating the mentor section. Should I stop my share? Jay, do you want to share and discuss the thoughts?
You're
muted.
muted, Jay.
Sorry, bad click. I wonder if it's worth keeping up just in case anyone has anything they want to add to those sub actions in each of those sections. Because we've just got that as a little bit of a tentative sort of thing with some of those lists. But yeah, basically Leanne and I have just been reviewing some of the content layout at the moment. I'll just drop these in real quick. Oh, is that work? No, that's not work.
So looking for the mentor or mentee hackathons.
Yeah, I was going to drop in those diagrams as reference as well, but
Oh, the diagrams. Oh, yeah, that's also.
can you do it into the chat on here or not?
You can't do pictures in the chat.
Oh, okay, never mind that then. Yeah, if we maybe just bring up the hack then. If you
So what we were looking at is at the moment the thought is, let me start here. So if we go to the repo, let's go back. Go to mentoring and go to V2. So the initial thought was, if we go into mentees, we have several folders here with all different levels of information. So what Jay and I was discussing is maybe changing it in a way like this, where we have basically the mentee README contains most of the things in that list. So you have the career journey becomes a thing in the README. So the README is just an informational of the program. And the program is just a link to, as Nate said, don't duplicate things. We have existing programs in which you can participate, and there's a link to the programs. And then expected entry-level experience and some basic information what you need to do, applying how to join, communication, contribution. So all the things that we have back there as files at the moment, make it one big long README, which would probably come down to 1 or 2 pages max. And then make separate files for maybe success stories and the FAQs. But the rest is all incorporated in the README as a 2-page or startup guide for anybody to read through. So that's kind of what did I get that right, Jay?
Yeah, just I'll figure out the best way to sort of share out those diagrams as well. But we looked at them side by side with what was and what might be. It was pretty bloated. So I guess it's just trying to find that line between what's the most pertinent stuff that mentees are going to or typically going to look at and want to know about as they first come in. And that's probably that ongoing conversation as well around, creating the persona and, how we're going to expect people to be interacting this and what are the sorts of things they're going to look for and what's the best way to sort of structure that cleanly. So
this looks great. Can you share a link to this HackMD in our agenda just so we can have some more eyes on it?
What I will do is I'll go to the chat, which should be here. I'm not in the agenda at the moment, so I'll stick it in there. But I see somebody's taking some great notes. So there's that. And then let me just go find the other one.
Where is the chat? Chat.
And we did a similar thing to what I think would be a great thing is Nate, Jay and I created this during the week during discussion and how we think it should roll. But I think you've got a lot of expertise to work with us on the document flow. And even if we just get the flow and the headings right, stick that into a PR to update the framework, and then we start completing paragraphs one by one,
Yeah.
different sections.
Absolutely.
So if you can help us identify the framework, we'll stick that in a PR and get that onto V2.
I think that would be great. I'd be happy to. I'd happy to. Where does this is? So right now these are all empty files in what we're looking at here in the mentees folder.
Yeah, this is at the moment all empty files. So we were considering this is when Jay collected all the information. Initially, we considered making it all separate sections or
Right.
separate files. But I think for readability for the end user, if you look at the end user's need, if you have a two-pager that tells you the whole story and just take you out for FAQs and take you out for success stories, maybe.
Yep, exactly, and then the link that we just shared is the draft for the mentee section. Okay, I get that. So I'd be happy to take a jump into that and figure out what we can do.
And even if once we got the HackMD framework, I'll just copy paste it into the README, push that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Could we make this into use some kind of documentation framework so we can have these on not only in GitHub but in a website or a docs?
That's exactly the goal.
One thing I was thinking is that having all this like good material and documentation in GitHub is great, but I don't think we can have any analytics of who's accessing like what document and what document is like most demanded and whatnot.
Part of the goal of this is to make this stuff a part of the contributing.io, contributing.cncf.io site. But we don't have permission to we can't do that just yet. And so we still need to organize all of what we have. So we're doing the organization first in the repo, because there's still going to be things that we have to do in the repo, even once we get it onto a website. But I completely agree. And the goal is to eventually get this into a website and probably contributing.cncf.io.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That would be nice to have the stats and
yeah, I completely agree. And this is part of the reason that it's nice to do it this way too, is because the .md files will be able to almost one for one move across to, because the contributing.cncf.io site is a Hugo site, so it should be easy to move from one to the other once we get it sorted here. The other thing is, again, like having these types of conversations and being able to sort of work on the V2 and have conversations about it here rather than there is helpful. So that's why we decided to do it here first. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, you gotta get it to a website at some point.
Yeah, I think as soon as we have it ready, then we can start talking to Chris Abram, because he pulls the whole thing just into a website.
Yeah,
but we first need to create the content in an organized.
Well, it won't be a new website though. That's the trick. If we're gonna, well, it could be, but let's save that conversation for another day.
Yeah, and would it be difficult to have after that's merged into like the one of the existing sites or a new one? Would it be easy or how hard it is to get the stats of like access to pages and the analytics and whatnot? Like,
well, it would be easier to put it into an existing site because the infrastructure would already be there. We could. But
do we have access to that, to the data from the analytics?
I do think from things that I've seen about site visits and things, I'm sure Chris got all the machinery behind to monitor.
Yeah, and it's a CNCF site, so I mean, if we don't have access, we can get access. So I'm not concerned about that at all. That's part of the reason though that I want to use. Plus we're a working group of the contributor strategy tag, so it makes sense to put it on their site. So that's why contributing.cncf.io.
Cool.
Okay. Is there, I think that hits all of our agenda items. Is there anything else we've still got 15 minutes or so. Is there anything else we want to discuss while we're here?
Nothing for me at the moment.
Do we want to discuss any more, or do we need to wait for an opportunity where we can bring Josh in? Activities around KubeCon?
Yeah, it might be good to touch base with Josh again, because I'm pretty keen to put a draft, sort of plan or proposal together in terms of what they'll look like.
Yeah. I don't think they've opened up. They just closed CFPs for talks, but I think that the maintainer track stuff opens up. I'm not sure exactly the date, but it's still in the future, so we've still got time on that.
Okay. Adding that to our notes.
Another
Just a
data point for our calendar.
just a note that I'll start probably planning and trying to group people together to figure out the contributor board and matchmaking project that we talked about in the contributor strategy governance meeting. I'll probably start in the next couple of weeks, and the project itself is probably going to start early January, mid-January. So expect some questions there. I'll probably ask some feedback and on how to see where we can where we can collaborate and check in some of the features and like the initial stakeholders and whatnot. But that's for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, what was that project again, please, man? I just want to make sure I capture that in the notes.
So that the contributor board and matchmaking is it's not really a mentorship initiative. It's more of a contributor strategy initiative, and it's essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Alexandra, but it's a way of trying to put people together, like projects who need help but aren't looking to hire folks, right? And again, it's things like etcd needs a maintainer, for instance. And so there are positions that are open in some of these projects that aren't paid positions, but which are potentially more in-depth positions than what you would find for typical menteeship, right? And so it's I don't know that we yet understand what it is going to be, and I think there's still a bunch of conversation that still needs to happen around that. But that's I think the long and short of it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alexander.
That's what? Sorry.
Did I describe it correctly?
Yeah. It's just a platform to facilitate and connect people that are that want to contribute to an open source project or get more experience, and projects that need maintainers or contributors, and the platform and what we are trying to do is get to a system that recommends and do some matchmaking between projects, contributors, maintainers, and potentially, like in the future, also integrate with the with the mentors and mentees and programs that go into that space as well. But yeah, that's the summary. So, but it's a like rather complex system, so it's probably not going to be the entire platform up for right now. So it's more like planning and slowly executing and getting feedback and iterating over the next year to get to a good place.
And that's going to be my suggestion to you, Alexander. I know it's an exciting project and whatnot, but I would take this one slowly. I know that folks have been discussing it, and there are, like, I think probably even in this thread, like 3 or 4 ideas of what it could be. And then there are some things that I can't talk about yet in terms of things like Josh is saying here. There's the next version of LFX mentorship, which may work for what we're doing, but I can't describe that yet because it's not been made public. And so I may try to see if I can't have somebody from that program come and talk to us and say what it is going to be and what the timeline might be. But again, that's not something I'm going to be able to do until next year. But I'm not discouraging you from planning and coming up with ideas. But I would keep it. My suggestion would be to keep it at that ideation, planning, discussion phase at this point. I wouldn't push for this to get moved forward too quickly, just because it is going to be a big complex thing, however we go. So
yeah, it's more the next weeks and months are going to be more of researching, getting feedback, getting different opinions, and connecting and understanding the problem and whatnot. So yeah, be sure that that's not going to be rushed and whatnot. That's going to be something that we can actually get to a place that is good for the objectives we want to reach. And yeah, it's not going to be for next week or something. So it's more of a long-term project and yeah, and very impactful. So we gotta be mindful about that. And yeah.
Okay. Anything else, folks?
That sounds good to me.
No?
Yep.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. And
Likewise.
wherever you are, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Bye.